Hey there, darlings. You want to go for a walk in the garden with me? So I was actually out in the barn when I looked out here and realized I'd forgotten to turn the water off. And I decided to run in and grab my camera and bring you with me because it's my favorite time of day to just walk through and appreciate the garden. I don't really have time to do a full garden tour now, but a little short garden traipse, if you will. So we are finally having weather that is more typical of South Carolina in the summer. I mean, I am not complaining that it wasn't here, but this is more what I'm accustomed to being a southerner. And I guess it's a heat dome. I don't know. Y'all, I promote Ryan Hall, y'all's channel all the time. He is really awesome in sharing the weather, explaining things in a way that those of us who don't really understand the science behind the weather can understand it. I looked at the forecast the other day and I saw that we were going to be getting up to like 100 degrees Fahrenheit, 38 Celsius, which we really haven't much this summer, which is unusual. And then the next thing I get on YouTube and I see his thumbnail that's talking about it, and you know, the worst heat wave of the summer. Now, those of you who are in like the Midwest are experiencing more extreme heat than we are here on the East Coast, but it is hot nonetheless. I just saw a killdeer bird in here flapping around. I guess she got out. Oh, no more movement here on this high tunnel. We're not quite ready to start working on it, but we will here just very shortly. We will start building the beds here. Can you see why I love the evening golden hour? It's so glowy, just majestic. We've got some little brassica babies that are starting to pop up here in these garden beds. Looking pretty good, I think. Those will end up having to be thinned out, but right now we're gonna let the seedlings grow just in case something happens to any of them. Oh, and here's some random citrus plants. Will and I got into the habit last year, anytime we ate citrus out here, because we had a lot of citrus plants growing, we would put the seeds into the garden bed. And now we have multiple citrus plants. I don't know what they are. Probably lemons or kumquats, because that's what we would eat the most of. Now we have them coming up in the garden beds, which we'll have to pot those out because we don't need them there. I swear, like, anytime people come and they're snacking in my garden and they have something left over, if it has seeds in it, they're like, what do you want me to do with this? I'm like, throw it on the ground. It's tomorrow's volunteers. How lovely is this celosia? This volunteered. I think it just wanted to make me happy. So I walked in here for this. I wanted to see if there are any more of these bikini peppers, and there are quite a few. Such great little snacks. I had several people tell me that the name of these bikini means little beak, which I think is a really apt name. They're really good. I have so many peppers to process. I'm not gonna think about that right now. We're gonna shoot this video. You know, I didn't think this ginger was gonna do much of anything, but I'm kind of curious now. I bet that with our long season and with the high tunnel that I'll actually be able to harvest at least something from this. Back here on this back wall we have radishes, and then all along here different brassicas, beets, some lettuces. Some of these areas are going to have to be resown, which I'm not surprised. When it's hot, even under the shade cloth, some cool weather things will have a hard time germinating. Speaking of which, it is the middle of August. In my long season South Carolina summer, it is time now to really be starting the cold weather crops from seed. So that's something that I'm working on this week. Of course, we have direct sown some things, both out in the garden and in the high tunnel, but to really like nail it, starting them inside is really the best thing. I don't have a great place to start seeds inside here. I have my greenhouse, but of course it's very hot. So I'm going to try a little bit of a few things. I'm going to try under a grow light in my pantry to start a tray. I'm going to try some in the high tunnel and in the greenhouse. This week is really hot, but I don't expect it's gonna last a super long time. And ideally, you wanna get your seeds started about 6 weeks before you want to plant them out, which 6 weeks from right now is October. Ideally, you wanna plant them out at least a few weeks before your estimated first frost so that they can acclimate. I do have lots of content about the fall garden if you're interested in that. I'll put some links down below. Can you tell that we're getting tired of harvesting cherry tomatoes? Yep, we are officially at that point. I do have so many out here though that I hate to waste them. I probably will come do another big harvest here in the next couple of days. Maybe dehydrate some. You can also see that my tomatoes have been neglected in more than one way than just the cherry tomatoes being harvested. You guys recognize this? All these leafless sticks. All of these leafless sticks. That is hornworm damage, because I have not been out here hunting hornworms. I've seen the damage, but I was just like, meh, you know, we've harvested so many tomatoes. And the plants are all struggling, they're hot, they're not setting very much new fruit because of the heat. Obviously they're not, you know, their blossoms are dropping. Gosh, these plants though. Look at this. I really want to convey to you how tall this plant is. All right, I hope my camera doesn't fall. Taller! So tall. So tall. Look at that. That's glorious. Very well done, tomato. Who is this? Big Rainbow. Aptly named. This little calf is sitting here looking at me like, what are you doing, crazy? See ya, cutie. There hits a point in the garden season where I get really tired of preserving the same things. And my take is, as long as I can still come out and harvest food for fresh eating and making recipes. So like, I could come out and harvest enough tomatoes to make a batch of salsa. As long as I've got that, I'm thrilled. Like, I get over like the big push of harvesting once I put up enough that I feel satisfied with what I have. Oh, she's lovely. About this time every year, I start seeing a lot of posts on social media, specifically like in our Friends of Roots Refuge Facebook group, or just friends or people that I follow on Instagram or Facebook, whatever, that will start talking about how they're struggling, like staying connected to their garden. They're struggling finding the same joy. It's really hot, it's really hard, it's really weedy. You know, the plants are starting to get sick, there's whatever, crazy amounts of insects, whatever the reason. And here's the deal, that's totally normal. Like, it's coming towards the end of the season. Now for some people, they're still in the thick of it, they're really just starting to bring in a lot of harvest. For some people, their garden failed entirely. I feel you, that really largely happened to me last year. I had a ton of failure last year. But it's okay. Like, it's okay if you're struggling with that end of season disconnect. I do encourage you not to let it affect how you look forward to the next year, how you look forward to the next season. Maybe you go ahead and start some seeds for fall, even though you feel really disconnected from what's happening currently, because the excitement and the joy will come back. It's just a really hard time of year to stay excited and joyful. It's hot, it's hard, it's dying, but you'll feel excited about gardening again. Look at this wild thing, this melon. I just let it go wherever. This is not turning out what it's supposed to be. This is supposed to be a cantaloupe, and look at this. I have no clue what's going on here, but whatever. like I said, it comes to the point that you're just like, whatever. That's just the stance you have to take on the end of season garden. I do have some young squash plants coming up through here. That's exciting. Fall squash. Trying to decide if I should walk through this or around it. There are lots of stinging things in here. We're just gonna go for it and hope that I don't pay the price. Wasps are beneficial. They actually really are. They're good in the garden. A lot of them they prey on pests and they pollinate, but they also hurt my feelings when they sting me. Oh. This is a late season garden indeed. Got some beans coming up here, as well as some beans in here. And then the cucamelons are finally wandering and they've made it over here onto this trellis. And I'm gonna let them. Why not, right? Let's see how far they can go. So out here we have more squash, more beans. Mostly throughout the raised bed gardens right now, what we have second plantings of are squash and beans. All of these things are going to die with the frost, and that's intentional because mostly this winter we're mostly planting in the high tunnels. Now I may end up throwing some things out here just for the sake of like seeing them grow and maybe getting something, but I can much more guarantee that I'll get good harvests in the high tunnel where I can protect things if we do get an extra hard freeze. So I put that tomato that I picked in my pocket. At least it's not like an egg that I'm gonna forget. I mean, I guess I could mash a tomato in my pocket. If you mash an egg unintentionally in your pocket and it's a pocket omelet, what is it when you unintentionally mash a tomato in your pocket? Actually, I just remembered I saw one tomato over here I wanted to get. Look, this took its time. This sweet potato vine is gonna end up being majestic after all, spilling out into the walkways. All right, let's squeeze through here. All right, I've got a couple little guys here I wanted to grab. The fruit is getting a little smaller now that we're getting towards the end of the season, but still makes for good lettuce wraps in my case, or sandwiches for those of you who still have the joy of eating bread. Maybe I'll get back to it, I don't know. Hey, if I can still come out and get this on a random night out of my yard, I am a happy gardener. So let's talk real quick about that end of season burnout and what you can do, because it is totally normal. It's just part of gardening. One, you can let your garden go to the weeds. You can just be done. You're like, I'm done. I do encourage you, if you decide that you're done really trying with your garden, to still go out and visit the space. There's probably more food there than you would imagine available to you. Two, you can kind of put it on autopilot, meaning you're just gonna let it be what it is, kind of how I am with the tomatoes right now. We've harvested a ton. They're still kind of slowly trickling in, and I'm not ready to tear them out because I'm still harvesting a handful of really good tomatoes every couple of days. Obviously I've got plenty of cherry tomatoes. The flavor of late season tomatoes is really good just because it's hot and makes the sugars really concentrated. So I'm gonna just let it ride. Now, I'm not putting a lot of work into it at this point. I'm shifting my focus to the seed starting for the fall garden. And that helps me stay excited when I'm experiencing, also simultaneously like kind of throwing my hands up and being like, whatever. If you are having a really hard time wanting to grow anything else and you're feeling just really zapped on gardening, but in your mind you do not want it to be just a seasonal thing you do and something that you're wanting to embrace all the time, go back to those photos and those videos and those clips of things that I encouraged you to take, that I know many of you say you've started taking records. When I am feeling like I want to be done, and I do quit gardening relatively regularly, you know, like I don't do it that seriously anymore because I, you know, have a business that this is a huge part of my job, and that kind of keeps me from dramatically quitting regularly as I used to. But I still do get that feeling of like, I am done, I don't want to do this, I'm tired of this. And 1 20-minute walk down memory lane looking at what this garden looked like 4 or 5 months ago will send me straight out the door, because to remember how dead and gray it is in winter and how slow it is to get started, I stop looking at it through the critical eyes of, oh, there's too many weeds and that's diseased and oh, I missed that, and you know, where I start kind of getting down on myself and I start feeling like it's hopeless or it's too much work. I would so much rather see this wild and wayward August garden than see the gray of the dead of winter. Winter has its time, it has its place, rest is good, I know, but it makes me want to come outside and enjoy my garden, to realize I'm gonna miss this in just a few months, as wild and diseased as it is. And lastly, my last tip when you're at that place, and I'm not even necessarily making a case for trying to like squeak much out of your spring summer garden, because for some of you, I mean, it's long gone. Some of you are in the heat dome, and when it's 107 degrees every day, like, it doesn't matter how bad you want it. The garden is just, there's only so much you can do, you know? Some of you are coming close on your first frost, and so there's only so much you can do. But if there is still a desire in your heart to, goodness, the horses are like in a little kicking match. If there is still a desire in your heart to make the garden work, or if you're thinking, I really wish that I could do a fall garden, but I'm just so burnt out. One thing that helps me if it's not looking back on the garden is looking forward on the things that I want to cook for fall. So getting cookbooks out, getting on Pinterest, looking up recipes for cabbage and rutabagas and Brussels sprouts and turnips and carrots and peas and all of those things. That really helps me. I get very, very motivated in the garden by looking for motivation in the kitchen. So if you are in that place and you're looking for just a little kick, a little push, if you will, into wanting the garden again, maybe try those things. That's what I do. And then, of course, there is the just beauty of embracing it. I mean, coming out here and sitting in it. It's so hot. I mean, you can probably see I am soaking this dress with sweat being out here, but I come out here and I sit, and you see these chairs sitting everywhere. That's because I come sit in them and just take a quiet moment and drink it in and enjoy it. Sometimes I like to just come out and sit and imagine what I think it'll be like next year. I believe imagination is such a powerful tool that we've been given, and maybe instead of feeling like focusing too much on what maybe went wrong this year or what you wish had happened, let your imagination run wild on what you hope next year's going to be like. Take notes. Like right now, when you're in the thick of it, is a great time to take notes. Make those videos, put it down in those journals so you know what you're looking at for the next season. So Will and I were discussing the other day that we think deer may be eating the sweet potato vines, which is weird because they're not messing with anything else. I suppose it could be like rabbits, but something's definitely munching these down. I mean, substantially. It's not an insect. It's something that's able to like eat a lot in a short period of time. I just would assume that if deer were doing it, they would maybe mess with some of this other stuff. And I haven't seen any damage on any of the other things in the garden. Oh, the zinnias have folded. Even diseased, they're kind of beautiful in their own way, don't you think? The celosia is going strong though. Every time I show this, people ask me what variety it is, and I actually do not know. I cannot remember the origin of this celosia because I think I planted it, I guess last year. I had a few plugs. I'm pretty sure I got these as just small starts. I think it's just kind of the basic variety that they sell at stores. This is coxcomb, or celosia is the proper name for it, but I don't know. It's beautiful, it's resilient, and it reseeds like crazy, so I'm married to it now. It's everywhere. You know that moment, I think I mentioned this recently, where the sun like goes down, it just went below the trees, and it's like the air just feels cooler, less oppressive. So I'm wondering, because I think the comment section has the potential to be like a gold mine whenever you all participate. What do you do at this point of the season? Like, what do you do at the end of this season? What helps you to maintain like the passion of gardening as the garden dies? Do you go for the next season? Do you do something indoors? Do you turn to houseplants? Do you just rest? And are you just thankful you go hard in the paint during the season and then just let it go whenever it's time for it to be over? What do you do? How do you deal with that? Because there's a lot of people who are gardening for the first time that are experiencing this. It's heartbreaking. It is. It is a heartbreaking thing to watch the garden that you worked so hard on just slowly go wild and eventually fold. It's a hard loss, and you feel it every single year. And I won't say it doesn't get easier, because I think that it does. How fast the year cycles, and the solid knowledge that it's going to come back around is definitely comforting, but it's still hard. It's hard to let the garden go. So what do you do? Share in a comment down below if you don't mind. Thank you guys for hanging out with me today and all the days that you do. I bless you. Until next time.